Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the ARP website are your one stop knowledge and resource space for autism and much more. I'm very happy to have Ambassador Ian Hale join me as my guest today. Ian has written extensively about autism. He himself identifies as being on the spectrum and is an amazing advocate and voice for the autism community. He is a member of the World Academy of Medical Science, Mensa, a trustee of Autistic Nottingham, and a longtime member of the UK Government Advisory Policy. Welcome, Ian, and thank you so much for taking time to join me and discuss the work that you do.
Well, it's a great pleasure. My goal is always to spread the message and to inform and encourage wherever I can. And to everybody watching this, whatever day it is, whatever month it is, whatever year it is, I hope you're having a good one and that you'll enjoy our broadcast together with Gilda here. We've known each other a long time, and I'm sure this is going to go great.
I think it's going to go terrific, and it's so nice to have you back again, Ian. So,
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
for this particular episode, I'd like to talk about the various stages of life, if you will, of a neurodivergent individual. So, to begin with, let's discuss your observations concerning the gifted child. How do you define giftedness, and what are some important things to note concerning these children?
Well, I think the most important thing is that sadly, teachers are not taught at teacher training. And bearing in mind that I was I'm a trained graduate teacher, that you are not taught to spot the signs of the gifted child. The gifted child, there are a number of ways you can spot them. They will often not be paying much attention to the teacher because they're a long way ahead of what's being taught at an intellectual and often at a philosophical and a logic level. So they'll often, either be in a corner and in another, part of the universe, or they'll be staring out of the window. That tends to be more with the gifted female child. With the gifted male child, they will be more vocal, they will be more physical with their discontent, and they will often be labeled as disruptive. They'll be kept back, indeed, as I was, because I didn't pass any of the exams at primary, what you would say is elementary school, because I didn't do any work, because I was getting this phenomenal education at home, with my family. And I was stages ahead. I mean, I did not identify with, with my contemporaries at that age, because I had nothing in common with them other than sport, which was great. My sort of saving grace at school was that I was always in the first teams in the winter and the summer sports. But I just wanted to do my own thing, read. I bought books from home to read while the teachers were teaching. I mean, they had nothing to teach me. It wasn't until I went to secondary school, what I think you would call high school, yes?
That's correct.
That the teachers actually had stuff to tell me that I didn't already know. And that was when everything really sort of changed. And that's when I began to really identify with the process of being educated. And the headmaster there did spot me as a gifted child and treated me accordingly.
Well,
But, I was incredibly fortunate, and particularly as my parents were such fierce advocates for me. I mean, I can remember, I've told this story before on air, but forgive me if I tell it again. I remember I was about, I don't know, I was probably, I don't know, I've said sort of 8, 9 years old or whatever. And I remember one evening we finished tea and it was before the 6 o'clock news. And there was a knock on the front door. And it was one of the teachers from primary school that I recognized, Mrs. Butterfield, if I remember rightly, something like that. And my father got up to open the door, and there were voices in the hall. And then she came into the living room. I picture this completely to this day. And they'd obviously had sort of quite a long conversation. And my father looked, I don't know, I think more amused than anything else, but obviously very concerned. And he said to me, my mother was there as well, of course. That was it Mrs. Corbishley? Can't remember which, one of the two. Tells me that they're very concerned that that you're the age you are and that you can't read and you can't write. And said, Ian, would you like to just pick a book off the bookshelf, please? Anyone you like, whatever. And I just over and picked the book off, and it happened to be a book of poetry by Tennyson, of which my father was particularly fond, along with the Roman poets. And my father opened the book to the charge of the Light Brigade. So, would you like to read Mrs. Whatever her name was? And I read straight through the charge of the Light Brigade. And the look on this woman's face, I mean, God, I hope I never forget it. And then my father took the book down and put it on the shelf, and he said, Ian, would you like to get one of your go into your bedroom and get one of your exercise books? And my parents would buy me these they were blue, standard size kind of notebooks, lined notebooks of the type we used at school. Soft cover and white paper with lines on. And he said, show. And I did. And it was, they were full of little drawings and notes and poetry and observations and stuff, all written out in my hand. And she just basically crawled out under the door.
Well, there you go. A very good example of what we call here the twice exceptional child. A child that may identify as neurodivergent, but also is incredibly bright and gifted. Um, and now, when this neurodivergent child grows and becomes an adult, I know in your books you talk about something called the whole body condition. Can you
Yeah.
please elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, well, because the vast majority of neurodivergent conditions, and I go beyond autism in the book, as you know. I talk about schizophrenia, bipolar, ADHD, which is not considered to be on the autism spectrum. It's a separate thing in itself. And from a biochemistry uh, position, when you actually look at the genetic sequences, it shares far more and far more significant genetic sequencing with schizophrenia and bipolar than it does with any of the conditions that are quite clearly, part of the autism spectrum. So we're talking about an area. When we talk about autism, we're talking about an area, a very well-defined and understood area, within a much broader spectrum. Something a lot broader than, I think of it as a complete kind of scale, from right the way through from A to whatever you want to say, from the beginning to the end, and of which autism is, part of that scale. But there's a lot more, and that applies to some other conditions as well. And in the vast majority of cases, these, as we all know, autism runs in families. All the neurodivergent conditions run in families, and therefore, they're clearly genetic, either directly or there is a strong genetic predisposition. And of course, when the genome is different, to a point where it actually affects the structural and chemical um, development of the brain, which is precisely what neurodiversity is. We are talking about the human genome, which affects every part of the body. So in many ways, you can look at neurodivergence as a symptom of other things that you will always find in patients who have inherited the condition. I mean, what the medical profession, what myself calls comorbidities. For example, you will always, with any form of neurodivergence, don't care what it is, from Williams to Rett's to classical autism to schizophrenia to bipolar to whatever, you will always find there will be gut problems. Now, the reason there will be gut problems is because we do have three brains. We have one, two, which are connected by the bridge, but we also have a third brain, which is located just above it's about 2 inches to the right of the stomach button and deeply in there. And in fact, the whole of the gastrointestinal tract is actually covered with hundreds of millions of neurons. So, in other words, when people talk about having a gut feeling, no, that's not. That might be what some people would like to call intuition, but no, it's actually thought, and it actually is done in the same way, with the astrocytes and the and the neuronic and synaptic activity that typically, even doctors, unless they're very, very specialist neurologists in the way that I am, just associate directly with the cerebellum itself.
That's fascinating, because I know I've heard of the gut referred to as the second brain, but the fact that there are three is really something that's quite
Yeah,
interesting.
left hemisphere, right hemisphere, and the colostrum, which connects the two. It's very interesting if you sever that. What happens? You actually get two different people. So yeah, we do have two brains within the same skull.
That's fascinating. So then to complete the circle, let's talk about the senior neurodivergent individual. How would you say that their support needs are different or unique?
Precisely, it is. You've hit the nail right on the head there, Gilda. It's precisely the same as when they were a child. They actually need a damn sight more support because I've noticed. Obviously I know people of my age, and I don't pretend to be 25 anymore. For God's sakes, um, uh, my expression of my neurodiversity, yeah, for sure. I've learned to. I don't mask and I don't filter very much, um, but I do give more thought before I act and speak less impulsively. I've disciplined myself to do that. Um, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel the same inside, or that because I don't show much emotion, it doesn't mean I don't have it. And of course, you need physical support, you need financial support. You're not able to, I'm not able to do the kind of physical work that I used to do. Obviously, I'm not. And but we still need the emotional support, the as I say, physical help. Obviously, as we get older, our immune system begins to break down, so we need more medical support in order to stay healthy. And above all, God damn it, we need doctors to actually listen to us rather than just hear.
Well, that is a whole
I
different
pardon
episode
the
in and of
language,
itself.
but if anybody doesn't like it, I'm afraid, like I say, I don't really filter that much. It's too damned exhausting.
Well, you're passionate about that, and I can certainly understand why. And I'm sure you're not alone in your feelings about that sort of thing.
No,
Absolutely.
people have often said to me, privately, um, that I tend to say the things that that they want to but wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, someone needs to say them, right?
Yeah, my feeling is that, with the titles I have, I'm at the doctor, professor, the fellowship. If not me, who? And if not now, when?
Well, there you go. And speaking of titles, by the way, I understand your ambassadorial title is rather new, just as a bit of an interesting
Yeah,
side note.
we're only within the last 6 weeks or so. I was my I don't know my work. I don't know whether with the UK government or um, sort of other things that I've been involved with over the years. But yeah, I was asked to have the role as a UNESCO peace ambassador, which is, as you know, more actually UNESCO is older than the UN. People don't realize that UNESCO goes back to the 1930s. Will fairly shortly be celebrating its centenary. Um, I was asked to be a peace ambassador by then, which I accepted. And very shortly afterwards, I was asked to be a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. I said to them, what, you think I'm Angelina Jolie? Because I tell you what, I'm not, But no, they meant it for real. I've got the ID card and so forth,
Well, congratulations.
And I'm still sort of trying to take that on board. But I take this as I see this as we talked about the child, and UNICEF is a lot about, science and childhood and education, obviously. So I see this as, fulfilling a part of the duties which I hope I correctly understood.
Well, I'm sure
And
you will
and
fulfill them well.
I'm delighted to do so. You know, on top of, obviously delighted to be able to do this broadcast with you again.
Well, as I am delighted to have you again. And I guess we've come to the point where I want to ask you, is there anything that I haven't asked or anything that we haven't discussed about the life cycle of a neurodivergent individual or any other issue that relates to what we've been talking about that you'd like to add? And also, what do you feel is the most important takeaway for our listeners from our conversation?
I think actually I can roll that to one question,
All
one
right.
answer. Um, this is not. I first of all, I do want to give a trigger warning in advance of what I'm about to say.
All right.
But the hard statistics are that the average age to which a person who is diagnosed neurodivergent lives is 46 years. And with the part of the spectrum which has been incorporated in the DSM-5, which used to be called Asperger's syndrome, people with that particular narrow area, their average life expectancy is 39. Now compare that with the general life expectancy of the population, and you can see the discrimination and the lack of care. I mean, we're looked at as a less than human. It's not worth bothering with, not worth wasting resources with. We're only 1% of the population, not too many votes there. And quite honestly, it's a violation of everything and a disgraceful piece of hypocrisy of everything that Western culture pretends that it stands up for. I mean, the breathtaking hypocrisy that you find from the West, uniquely from the Western world, is absolutely. If there's one thing that really, well, I mean, a number of things make my blood boil, but that's one of them. The words that come out of the mouths of slimy politicians, particularly like the ones we have in the UK, compared with the actions which they don't take and the ones which they. I mean, the number, for example, of neurodivergent people who die in police custody. I'll give you one example. The number who end homeless. who end as drug addicts and are found dead on the street. I mean, it's so common they don't even bother to report it. And the governments know this. They're so ashamed of it, they won't allow the mainstream media to give it any publicity.
Hmm. So what you're saying is that for actually the statistics that I have seen would put out there that the population is much greater than the percentage of the population that actually, if you combine all of the neurodivergent individuals and disabled and physically
Oh,
disabled and so
absolutely.
forth,
Yeah, I was simply
it's
talking about the
it's
autism itself. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's basically a billion people. Well,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yes,
a
it is.
lot of people. And so what you're saying is you're talking about life expectancy from the standpoint that not necessarily physical life expectancy from a medical standpoint, but from a standpoint of
No, no, I'm talking
resources
about people dying
management.
early because of neglect and
Uh-huh.
because society basically wants to see the back of them because it's a damn sight cheaper.
Mm. Well,
I
let's
mean, talk about profits, politicians before people. That's what we're saying. And
yes.
I tell you what, you're when people watch this broadcast, you're going to get a lot of letters in saying that, yeah, he's actually telling the truth. That's our experience too.
Well, obviously, something like that is something that we hope is changing and will continue to change.
Well, yes, but it won't unless people like you and myself and Professor Newton Lee of IFERS and Chloe Estelle, from Autism, and people like Professor Samuel Levine at Touro Law School and Anna Kennedy OBE over here, and Dr. Stephen Shaw. I'm sure you know Steve. People like that who do have a voice and who do use that voice. Um, you know, Gosh, it's a pity we've still got a battle on at the ages that some of us are. But bottom line, it ain't got much better. It has got better, but not anything like as much as I'm sure we hoped, for example, 30 years ago. And yeah, there's still a heck of a fight on.
Well, fight on, Ian, and I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you. And if I may say, I wanted to thank Professor Newton Lee and Chloe Estelle Newton for publishing my book, which can be bought from Amazon, any of the Amazon platforms, and I know it's available on the Apple system as well. And it's called Autism, Family, and You. And the model is Chloe, and the dog is Benji. And this explains to a much, obviously, because it's quite a long book, it explains, it takes on the themes we've been discussing and looks at them up, the kind of detail, a lot more detail, and offers an awful lot of practical day-to-day advice to, as they say, it's whatever gets you through the night.
Well, thank you again, Ian, and you are welcome back anytime.
Well, I would certainly love to do it again. It's always a pleasure and a privilege, Gilda. Always.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. We'd appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube at ARP Social, where you'll find bonus content, and be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram to get up-to-date notifications about the latest news and episodes. If you would like more information on anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. Be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.